Fair warning, this show contains strong language and adult themes from time to time. Sorry, Jerry can't help it.
Sick Boy Wolfgang Productions presents The Offering with Jerry Horror. A deep dive into the history of film and its filmmakers. Mostly horror, always genre.
The term cult film itself refers to the subculture that surrounds underground films and midnight movies. A cafe is usually a small and informal establishment serving various refreshments in an intimate and inviting setting. What do you get when you combine the two? You get the Cult Cafe, located at the Cinema Arts Center in Huntington, New York. Every Saturday night at 10 p.m., Cult Cafe brings you the best in cult film and beloved classics, curated with care, especially for a devoted fan base of cinephiles. Cult Cafe is where box office bombs are resurrected, and more obscure, transgressive films, shunned by the mainstream, can find a home beautifully projected on a large silver screen. Past movies screened at the Cult Cafe include David Cronenberg's Videodrome, Frank Henenlotter's Basket Case, John Carpenter's The Thing, Sam Raimi's Evil Dead, Victor Bonacor's Thrust, and Richard Kelly's Donnie Darko. Man, the programming there is on point. For tickets and showtimes, head on over to cinemaartscenter.org to find a listing of films, or add Cult Cafe on Facebook to find a series of upcoming events. There really is nothing like seeing an old favorite in a theater full of your fellow movie fans. Hey, maybe I'll even see you there. Cinema will never die at the Cult Cafe. Listeners and fans of The Offering can get their hands on their very own The Offering with Jerry Horror merch, now only at TeePublic. Find your own fresh The Offering with Jerry Horror high-quality merchandise, including t-shirts, hoodies, tank tops, long sleeves, stickers, and mugs. Just like the show, we've got gear that's mostly horror, always genre. The Offering with Jerry Horror TeePublic store has everything you need to represent your favorite podcast. Folks, head on over to teepublic.com right now and pick up your very own Offering tee today. Welcome to The Offering with Jerry Horror, the show where we can have a quiet and frank discussion as adults about the things that matter to me, or at least that I think matter to me. Please take a moment to subscribe to our show wherever you get fine podcasts, and hey, stay up to date on future episodes. Coming up, it's the holiday present that you wouldn't re-gift to your worst enemy, but somehow it's under your Christmas tree. This is The Offering's Black Xmas Extravaganza. Come sit on old Santa Jerry's lap and have a good time. We got plenty of eggnog for your reindeer. Ladies and gentlemen, friends beyond the binary, Merry Christmas. You have made it this far. This is the first holiday special that The Offering has ever done. So glad you could be here. Producer Pete's here. Did I tell you? Holy shit. It was just a little bit of a life update. I got COVID. First time. It was fucking terrible. Seriously, it was just like getting beat up for 3 or 4 days straight. 10 days to test negative. 12 days to kind of fully recover. And let me keep it a buck with you, audience. I still don't feel 100%. So we were going to do this Christmas special. We were going to do it early on because Pete and I have gotten smarter in our old age, and we've figured out like, oh, we need to do the Christmas special in August. But that's not the case. So I get COVID, and like a week later, Pete gets COVID. And I'm just like, oh man, we are not going to be doing this holiday special. Like, there's just no way. Maybe we could do one for Kwanzaa or Hanukkah next year, but this is not getting done. So, luckily for me, we finally get our shit together, and here we are with you, and we're very glad that you're here. We hope you enjoyed season 3. It was a lot of fun. We had a lot of fun making it, and there's always more fun stuff to come, but we like to keep it a secret. Just like you're listening to this now and you're like, there hasn't been an update since Halloween for this podcast. And you're like, all right, well, now there's an update. A little Christmas present from me and producer Pete. I'm glad we were able to get through that. People are like, well, you're going to open the show with a funeral? That's what you're going to talk about, Jerry? You're going to talk about a funeral? And I'm not trying to open this on a bad note, but it's just, this is my life and this is what happens. I went to a funeral and I had a lot of fun. And I know that sounds absolutely crazy. What was nuts was there was a fireman's funeral at the same funeral home. And they had all these crazy fire trucks with all the lights. At first, I'm going there and I'm thinking, like, am I walking into Die Hard 2? Like, what's happening here at this funeral home? And it was actually appropriate. You know, I'm like, I'm not going to say the name. I was going to say, you know, like, let's not say the name. It's better we don't. But it is a family friend. And I walk into the funeral home. I'm like, yeah, I'm here for Bill. It's not Bill. But I'm here for Bill. And they're like, oh, that's in the other room over there. And all of a sudden I hear Sweet Child of Mine by Guns N' Roses. And I'm like, what's going on in here? And there is alcohol flowing freely. And I'm just saying to myself, I'm like, I've mentally prepared myself for a specific vibe, a funeral vibe. And I'm like, all right, Jerry, low key, you know, we're just going to stay in our feelings, show our empathy towards his friends and family. And just one song after another. Rat, Round and Round, all this hair metal. You had Metallica. They're playing fucking Metallica at a funeral. I realized there's a big crowd in the middle of the room. And I'm like, what the hell is this? I'm looking and I realize that this guy's body is under like a glass table kind of thing in the middle of the room. He's under plexiglass. And they're using this table that has a corpse in it as a bar. And the thing is if you were going to go up to his casket and say goodbye, you had to take a shot of Patron. And I was like, I really don't drink. I was like, I gotta do it. So I take this big, thick shot of Patron and I'm like, whoa. It was just crazy. Somebody lit up a joint, which I was like, what? And they told him like, listen, you gotta get out of here. But it was wild because he wanted this to be a celebration. And you had all these guys that are like in their late 50s, early 60s, and they were all like metal guys, you know, like they had long hair. Some of them still had long hair. You had these bikers and stuff. Most funerals are really depressing. We know like in Irish culture, their wakes are more celebratory. And I think it's a celebration of life. And that reflects in some cultures. But in America, especially with Christianity, most funerals are kind of a boner killer. You know, like they're not fun things to go to, especially when it's tragic or it's somebody young or a beloved person in the community. But this guy got it right, man. They were playing Pink Floyd. People are singing. These people are drunk. There's like 100 old metalheads and they're just all sloshed and in their emotions. It was the first funeral that I went to where there was tailgating. There were actually people like actively, like I think a guy had like a quarter keg in the back of his pickup truck. At first, I was kind of like, what is this? This is garish. You're making a mockery of this man's death. This is beautiful. This is the way. All these guys are listening to all this music that they grew up with. They're singing along. They're having drinks. Everybody's going to remember that. And everybody's going to remember that they had a good time. It was one last party with their friend. Someone said, and I heard this, they said, imagine we could do some lines off the coffin. I'm like, yo, if this guy does cocaine off of this body, this is a 10 out of 10 funeral. But seriously, highest ranked funeral ever. So they did all this stuff and the funeral home was compliant. And let me tell you something, when it was over at 9:00. I never saw what a funeral, it was like a bouncer. They had to have a guy come in and was like, all right, folks, we got to wrap this up. It was crazy. So the funeral home was very liberal. They let them do all this crazy stuff. My father went to the gentleman's widow and said, I'm shocked he didn't have strippers. And she was like, he wanted strippers. They tried to get strippers. And the funeral home was like, that's a bridge too far. So you can plan an awesome funeral, but just be careful about the strippers thing as far as your venue. They tried to appeal to the funeral home. Well, could we have burlesque dancers? Like, listen, no, this is... We don't know if there's a law, but there's probably a law against us having strippers here. So, all right, fine. You know, it's beautiful. It's the greatest way that you could be remembered. It's like almost like having a Viking funeral. You remember that. You're not going to forget. Like, If we went and set fire to your grandpa, you would remember that shit. I'm still traumatized, but when Luke Skywalker lit Darth Vader on fire, ooh, that was powerful stuff, powerful stuff. I love Christmas specials. Can we just talk about Christmas just for 2 seconds? 2 seconds, I promise, folks. Give me an early 80s Hanna-Barbera animated thing. Yogi Bear Saves Christmas. Huckleberry Hound gets VD. Whatever it is. Give me one of those. Because, man, those are just great. And they're so exploitive. A lot of these old Christmas cartoons, especially from the 80s, you can watch on YouTube with the commercials. Every other commercial is just He-Man, G.I. Joe. Like, they're just plugging. Old toy commercials used to be more evasive. There was no chill. You tell your parents to fucking buy you that shit right now. It's not like now where it's like, hey, look, cool, new product for a child. They're clenching and smacking their fists like, you better buy that shit, Timmy. And you better tell your parents that you absolutely need it. It was very predatory. Just a few of my favorites. A Muppet Family Christmas, not animated, but it's 87. That was on ABC. It's the first true crossover in the Muppet verse. You've got Fraggle Rock in there. You've got Sesame Street Gang. We've got everybody. We've got all the Muppets. It's great. It's my favorite. The Muppet Christmas Carol is great. I love it. Michael Caine is doing like this amazing, somber, suicidal performance. And he's just deadpan straight. And that's why that movie works. The Muppet Family Christmas is just, dude, you get to see Big Bird hanging out with Fozzie. And that, to me, as a little kid who grew up watching Sesame Street and stuff like that's the price of admission alone. That was 87, 88, Christmas at Pee-wee's Playhouse, which is amazing. Like it's like another lost media thing. Like nobody airs it, so you have to go watch it on YouTube. It's great. It holds up. The guests are incredible. Because if you haven't seen it, I don't want to spoil it. Go watch anybody of any age who listens to the show, go watch Christmas at Pee-wee's Playhouse, and you will get something out of it, I assure you. The Simpsons Christmas special was 89, the one where they get Santa's helper, and that was really kind of the pilot, even though it wasn't the first episode created, it was the pilot for the Simpsons show itself. But I remember it came on television, and people were like, okay, where's the show? We're like, okay, we're working on it, but here's something to kind of hold you over until we're done making this show. That's a very good episode. The Simpsons Christmas special is the first one where it's like a 28-minute episode. It really is kind of the jumping off point for what's to come. But I think what it was that they had to have the first season of The Simpsons done, and they just couldn't do it. So they were like, all right, here's what we're going to do. Here, we're going to give you the Christmas episode first. You air it, and while we finish the rest of it, which is just insane. It's all hand-drawn stuff from Korea. Those are events. Christmas Comes to Pac-Land. I think listen, out of all of this garbage, if you watch one thing, Christmas Comes to Pac-Land was made by Hanna-Barbera. I think it's 1982. It's really good. It's better than what a Pac-Man cartoon should be, or even a tie-in, but I watched it recently, and it holds up. It's pretty good. These were events. It was must-see TV when you were a kid. I don't know what it is about animated Christmas episodes, but I love them. There's something so engaging and inviting, because you can have the He-Man and She-Ra one. Usually Skeletor's like a threat. He's the villain. But in the Christmas special, he's just like kind of being nice. Instead of him trying to kill He-Man, he's like, I don't know, He-Man, you're kind of a dick. He's not, there's no big, it's like the whole thing with the MCU films. There's no big world-ending blue light in the sky. It's just a nice little Christmas story. And Skeletor's being a little stinker. And that's about it. He's not trying to kill He-Man. He's trying to get some eggnog. And it is what it is. They're the ultimate fantasy fulfillment for kids, these Christmas specials. Nothing is more cozy than, like, can we take, for instance, I'm trying to think, like, Magilla Gorilla. That's a deep cut from the Hanna-Barbera. You've got Magilla Gorilla. It's the same model they use for every other episode, but they put him in a Christmas sweater. And you're like, oh, this is nice. I like this. These characters are much more cozy when they're in a holiday setting. One thing your old pal Jerry's a sucker for is Christmas horror movies. You can give me any despicable film. It could be about a guy stalking a cheerleader. It could be about an evil doll. But you stick Christmas and Santa Claus in there, and that's it. I'm in hog heaven. I collect these movies. I have physical copies from VHS. I have all the DVDs. There's a lot of really good Christmas horror films. Krampus was great. The Michael Dougherty Krampus, I love that. The other stuff is bullshit. I'm not into that. Christmas, Bloody Christmas. All the Silent Night, Deadly Nights have their charm. The first movie is a masterpiece. If you watch Silent Night, Deadly Night, the full uncut version that Scream Factory put out, 10 out of 10. Banger. Slaps. Amazing. So even when they made the shitty Silent Night remake, because everything's got to be shorter in the future, T2, and that's not even the future, that's 30 years ago. But it was like, we're just going to call it Silent Night. Even that, as a lackluster remake, wasn't that bad. It's a terrible movie, but it's still watchable. There's some gore, there's some titties. It does what it's supposed to do. With that being said, there's films that have come into the lexicon as Christmas classics. Inadvertently, it's like a Christmas Story. Christmas Story comes out. It's kind of a flop. It does okay, but it's nothing crazy. But that film, broadcast on TNT, TBS, whatever, year after year, 24-hour marathons, now it's like the same thing with Elf. Elf was financially successful, but now Elf is just a part of our culture. It's a part of the holiday intrinsically. And that's kind of what happens with these Christmas horror films is they come out. Sometimes they come out in terrible times, like mid-July, we're going to do Tina's Crazy Christmas. I still don't know why they do that, but it's beyond me. It was like this year with The Holdovers. It's a Christmas cozy movie, but we're going to release it in October. That was just bizarre. But it's the same thing with these horror films. They often get maligned because, and I don't know what critics are expecting. I don't know what people want out of these. They just did this year It's a Wonderful Knife with Justin Long. That was a good one. Look, there's always banger holiday Christmas films, and I think a lot of people don't even realize it, just how many there are now, because you got people doing the older films, like stuff like To All a Good Night, and this has been going on for a long time. So it's really its own little subgenre. So I was very excited to do this movie that we're talking about today, because it's been considered a new kind of modern Christmas classic. And it came out in 2006. So if you're of a certain age and you remember that time, the music, everything that was going on, this is really going to hit that sweet spot of nostalgia, especially a lot of the stars attached. Who, I don't want to get into it though, because we're going to get into it after the break. But if I've whet your appetite for Christmas horror, this is it. I got a good one for you today. It's not a movie where all a bunch of, a lot of times on The Offering, we do movies that like everything went wrong. No, some things went wrong, of course, because of The Offering. But it's actually, this movie works and it's pretty good. But other people will say it's crap. But don't listen to them, because I'm the authority. And if you're looking for a holiday horror movie, old Jerry's got your back. I know all of them. I have no life. It's this. This is what consumes me around the holidays. So get out that reindeer meat, put on your Santa slippers, and get ready to cozy up to our presentation. Folks, you're in now. You're in, baby. This is the Black Xmas Extravaganza. So listen, hey, folks, the holidays are tough. We can all help prevent suicide. The 988 Lifeline provides 24/7 free and confidential support for people in distress, prevention, crisis resources for you and your loved ones, and the best practices for professionals in the United States. If you or anyone you know needs help, I know it's hard. Sometimes it's hard to admit it. You call, you can text 988. And help is out there, folks. We all get down in our feelings, and sometimes life seems a little bit overwhelming. And I'm saying to you, if you or anyone you know needs help, call, text 988, and they're going to find you somebody. You're going to get a therapist. You're going to talk to somebody. You're going to figure it out. You're going to come through. It's going to be a beating. It's going to be a beating. But if you come through, that next Christmas is going to be balling. You got it. Because let me tell you something. You got to fall down to get back up, right? If you're having a shitty time now, just think about how much better it's going to be next year. I think a slasher movie is really a modern monster movie. The difference between the Val Lewton movies like I Was a Teenage Werewolf were just sheer exploitation. Glenn Morgan on his conception of slasher films, 2006. Do you remember where you were in 2006? Let me bring you back to the era. Let's do a little bit of table setting. The number one song in the country for 3 weeks in a row was, and this was in December, Justin Timberlake featuring T.I., My Love. Do you remember that song? My love, bump, 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 my love. Okay, I remember a little bit, but Jesus, that feels like a far distant memory. The top TV shows at that time, in the month of December, American Idol, Dancing with the Stars, shockingly CSI, the OG CSI. This is the first iteration of this show, which there's been like 30 of them, right? Desperate Housewives was huge, Lost, and Grey's Anatomy. Top movies. The number one movie of December in 2006 was A Night at the Museum. The OG, the original Night at the Museum. They made like 3 or 4 of those too, right? Jesus, it's out of control. The big box office hits for that month were Happy Feet, Rocky Balboa, and Casino Royale, which was Daniel Craig's first outing as Bond. The top grossing horror film that year was Saw 3. It's where the producers made the genius move to kill off the protagonist of the series. They've been... Look, they made right with this latest Saw film that came out this year. They made good on it, but Jesus, they painted themselves into a corner. Hey, let's kill... It's like you're making Nightmare on Elm Street movies and you just made Dream Warriors. You're like, but let's kill Freddy. No, we want more Freddy. Why are you killing him? So they've made good on it. And I got to tell you, this is Black Christmas 2006. All right, you made it this far. That's the movie. Taking my drawers down, you can hit me, whatever.
15 years ago, on Christmas Eve, his family became his victims.
What have you done?
Now,
all roads and airports are officially closed. This one is not gonna let up.
a group of college friends
That sucks. Everyone should be home for Christmas.
are about to discover
Lauren, we're opening up presents.
Why don't you open the present we got you?
their house
I got it.
is his home.
All is calm, all is right. Who is in my house tonight?
Don't you have lots of toys to deliver to good little boys and girls?
You really shouldn't provoke somebody like that.
And on December 25th,
You're definitely getting punked.
Is that Santa's reindeer?
all he wants for Christmas
Is Megan in her room?
is a new family he can treat like his very own.
You're my family now.
Black Christmas.
When this remake was announced, if you were in the horror sphere, if you were in the whole interwebs, bloody, disgusting discourse on this movie, people lost their fucking minds. How can you remake it? How can you do this? Technically, I'm going to say it. I'm putting it on record. This is how I feel, and it's the truth. Bob Clark's 1974 Black Christmas is the first modern American slasher film. It takes a lot of stuff from the Italian Giallo stuff. There's a lot of different things, obviously, but it's the first real American. It predates Halloween. It's the first one. So that's why it's so special, especially if you saw that film in 1974. You hadn't seen anything like that. That was really jarring and shocking stuff for its era. And to be set on Christmas, oh my God, sacrilege. I get it. look, I get it. It's a classic. And I was kind of a dick. When this came out, I was like, oh, we're doing another remake. And there was a hot moment before I saw this film where I was like, man, this is what's wrong. And some of the remakes have been great. To me, my favorites of that era were like the Alexander Aja stuff. When he does Piranha 3D, he does The Hills Have Eyes. I thought those were very effective, very ghoulish and garish films that worked for me personally. I liked the Friday the 13th remake, but we were firmly, I think it was 2003, you had the success of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the remake, the one with Jessica Biel, and she's just looking delicious throughout that whole movie. And I'm telling you, there's a lot of kids who probably saw that movie because they're like, wow, that's the girl who should Seventh Heaven. Oh, God. Oof. Let's not talk about that. That's the real horror movie. After his debut feature, Willard, in 2003, director well, it's funny because Willard is a remake of a 1971 film. And Willard, the original, did really well. It was a bit of a hit. They even made a sequel, Ben. It's the one Michael Jackson sings the song to the rat, which is crazy. Great song. So Willard 2003 is a remake of that, obviously. Look, I like Willard. That's the one with Crispin Glover. Dude, Willard's really good. It's a solid film. Like, you can watch it now. I enjoy it. But 90% of that film is because it's the Crispin Glover of it all. His performance is just carrying that whole film. And it's weird because the Willard remake feels like a low-key kind of Tim Burton movie that Tim Burton didn't make, but you could imagine him making that movie if that sounds like makes sense. So Morgan gets approached by Dimension Films. That's right, folks. Everything is just a stealth. It's a stealth Harvey and Bob Weinstein episode. And I didn't actively do this. Producer Pete and I were just talking off microphone about another classic from Dimension Films, The Faculty, which it's definitely going to be a future episode. So sick plug for future episode. The Faculty. It's almost destiny. I feel like I'm dancing with the devil. I'm dancing with the Joker and Batman. And I feel like Harvey Weinstein is my nemesis. Like, if the show had a nemesis, literally, I think I said it on one of the last episodes, like, I'm going to have to fight this fucking guy. He's in no shape to be having a tussle. I'd fucking destroy him. And there'd be a lot of people who want to see that. Me being one of them. But I feel like no matter what we do, no matter what we cover, somehow it always comes back to the fucking Weinsteins. And this is no exception. So yeah, buckle up. Buckle up. So they approached Morgan to do this remake, and he was a fan of the original film, and he cited it as a predecessor to the modern slasher film, which influenced his decision to commit to this remake. Now, star Crystal Lowe noted Morgan's admiration and aim to take the film to a different level, while respecting the fact that the original was a great movie to begin with, right? Because you have to do that. You have to pay reverence to that original film, but move it into your own space because that's the best way to do it. Bob Clark, director of the original film, would be involved on this pretty hands-on. He would be there to support Morgan. Glenn Morgan gave Bob Clark a call, and he was like, hey, listen, I'm doing this remake. And it wasn't like a John Carpenter deal with like Rob Zombie, where Rob Zombie calls John Carpenter, and he's like, make whatever movie you want. I have to go play NBA 2K25, and I'm halfway through this pre-roll. I'll talk to you later, Rob, because that's what you get when you call John Carpenter in 2023. But yeah, he didn't give a shit. He's just like, go make your own movie. With this, Bob Clark was like, what do you want to do? And he was really kind of like collaborative and supportive. And he's like, I'm going to foster this remake. I'm going to help this younger guy. And you love to see that. You love to see that, especially with a lot of these people like Bob Clark, director of Porky's, A Christmas Story. Bob Clark made so many good movies. I don't think there was anybody who was a master of the genre that he could do like a boob comedy, a family film that's sentimental, but all of this kind of spawning from this horror Christmas film, which is weird. Sadly, this would be the final film that Clark would be involved with before his death on April 4th, 2007. Seriously, Bob Clark, rest in peace, a legend, man. In conceiving, this is why it's important too. I will say it again. Black Christmas is the first true slasher film made in North America. In conceiving a new script, Morgan had intended to rework elements of the original film that were left ambiguous or implied. He wanted to fill it out, such as the cryptic phone calls received by the sorority house. It was kind of one of these things where the reason that Clark's movie works so well is because we really don't know much about the killer. We're not even sure about motives or what's going on. He leaves us in the dark, and that's very effective. It's in the same way that Carpenter's Halloween is effective. We don't have all the, inner monologue of Michael Myers or figuring out what it is. He's just a force of nature. And with Black Christmas, it's just happening. It's the middle of winter. There's snow on the ground. It's a cozy time, and people are just going missing and being offed in incredibly horrible ways. And that's why the film is so influential, because it really swings for the fences and it gets there. So Morgan's like, all right, I'm going to use some of the stuff from the original, but I'm going to do my own thing. I'm going to kind of build on the whole sorority house aspect. So he's writing the screenplay, and Morgan received input from Bob Clark, because obviously Clark signs on to be an executive producer on the remake. Basically, he gets the blessing from Bob Clark, and Glenn Morgan's like, all right. He actually stated this in an interview. This is still Black Christmas. He's like, yeah, it's a remake. It's a little bit of reimagining, but it's essentially the same film. It's going to explore new subplots that might not have been fleshed out in the 74 film. Morgan created an extensive subplot for the film's killer, Billy, which introduced a secondary killer in Billy's younger sister, Agnes. Now, in the original film, the names Billy and Agnes figure prominently in the obscene calls received by the sorority sisters, if you guys remember that. In the writing of the character Billy, Morgan was inspired by the life of Edmund Kemper, who was a real-life serial killer, who as a child had been locked in the basement of his home by his mother, whom he later murdered. Now, this is pretty crazy, because this is what Morgan decides to base the whole film on. So this Edmund Kemper would murder 8 people, including his grandparents, whom he murdered at 15 years old, as well as a 15-year-old girl who lived down the street. He was nicknamed the co-ed killer because he would find young girls of college age that were hitchhiking, girls looking for a ride home from local bars. Okay, this is where it gets gruesome, kids. This is where the kids should shut off the podcast. Most of the murders involve necrophilia, decapitation, and disemboweling. He would perform sexual acts on the corpses for weeks, having sex with these corpses over and over again for weeks at a time. He was found sane. They said that he was sane. He was not insane, and guilty at his trial in 1973. Kemper requested from the judge that he get the death penalty for his crimes. Instead, Kemper was given 8 consecutive life sentences for every victim. He is still with us. He's alive. As of this recording, December 2023, he's 74 years old, and he's in complete lockdown at the California Medical Facility in Vacaville. Yo, that's crazy. So, yeah, he based this 06 film on this guy, and he's still alive. Like, he's out there right now. He's living and breathing. I don't know what his life is like, but dude, it's scary. Producer Pete just clued me into the fact that the show Mindhunter, they used Edward Kemper was the guy who basically wrote the FBI handbook on serial killers, which is just absolutely insane to me. Pete says it's very good. I haven't watched it yet. I will get there. I have 20 other holiday Christmas movies that are horror themed that I have to get through. The introduction of Agnes as a second killer, according to Mary Elizabeth Winstead, incorporated in part to extend the film's narrative arc, given that the phone calls are coming from inside the house. The plot twist from the 1974 film is probably too familiar for contemporary audiences. So they wanted to change that a little bit. So Morgan would set his own course by introducing a lot of these different elements, and Agnes being one of them. In a 2014 interview with Morgan, he claimed that his inclusion of a second killer was under the urging of Dimension Films executives. I felt that a $10 million movie of Black Christmas didn't need anyone's help, and they should have just left us alone. But they had to have 2 killers, and they were basically trying to find kids that were on the OC at the time. We compromised a lot. Now, Black Christmas was shot on location in Vancouver, Canada. Given that a great deal of the film takes place during a blackout inside of a home, the cinematographers and lighting department were forced to find inventive ways to achieve appropriate lighting on the actors, which included cutting holes in the walls. This film, you want to talk about a movie that's lit brilliantly. When it's cozy, it's cozy. When it's creepy. There is a bit of the ever-presence of Christmas. You'll find it in a lot of the frames and a lot of the lighting, and that's very important to a Christmas horror film. You have to be very on point that it is taking place. So whenever you're taking a shot, hey, make sure there's something in the shot that reflects the holiday. The film's prominent exhibition of Christmas decorations and its overtly red color palette were deliberately chosen by Morgan. He wanted to evoke an American Christmas, the Norman Rockwell aesthetic, which he characterized as being a cross between Washington Irving and Coca-Cola. Now, on the first day of shooting, this is the first day, which is how this whole movie kicks off. During a fight scene with the killer, Lacey Chabert is injured, and she fucked up her leg, and she had to fly to Los Angeles to see a doctor. She was able to return the following day and continue filming, but she really got messed up, and they were like, oh God, this is like one of the film's leads, and it's the first day. I needed to go over the cast here really quick. You've got Michelle Trachtenberg. She was huge off of Buffy at the time. Mary Elizabeth Winstead. God, she's so beautiful. There's nothing else I can say. The one that I'm attracted to most is Lacey Chabert. Producer Pete keeps killing me. Lacey Chabert. That's it. Okay. Not Sherbert. It's Lacey Sherbert. She's the hottest. I don't know what it is, man, about her. She's got like a real Jewish, Italian, East Coast kind of thing going on, and I'm feeling it. Do you get what I'm saying? Like, if people were like, hey, Jerry, who are you married to? I'm like, it's Lacey Chabert. I'm married to her, girl from Party of Five. Oh my God. I don't know what it is. I'm so attracted to her. But there's a whole bunch of attractive people in this cast. You got Katie Cassidy, Kristen Cloak, Andrea Martin. She just did My Big Fat Greek Wedding 3. God bless her. She is out there making money. Another beauty, this is probably my second place beauty of this film, is Yan K. Crystal Lowe. She's beautiful. Oliver Hudson, that's Goldie Hawn's son. Kate Hudson, thank you. Kate Hudson was like a huge star in the early aughts. Like, she was a big deal. She was in a lot of movies, and then she just kind of disappeared, which is weird. Karen Knoval is in here. Got Dean Fries, Robert Mann, Jessica Harmon, Leela Savasta, Christina Kravici. She's beautiful. She plays a little kid in this. She's playing Agnes at 8 years old. She was 8 years old and plays the young Agnes, but she grew up to be really hot. So she wasn't. This is not Jerry Horror sitting here like, oh, it's really hot 8-year-old in this movie. Alex Jones lives. Aaron Pearl is in this movie, not Aaron Paul. At first I saw that on the credit listing. I was like, Aaron Paul. And I was like, oh no, Aaron Pearl, which is his Great Value Walmart brand. Yeah, there's some people in this movie. It's got a cast, obviously. But what I'm saying is you got a lot of these people, they were hot at the time. All of these actors and actresses. I mean, they probably thought Oliver Hudson was going to be the star of tomorrow. And it's funny because Pete brought that up. It's just like, it's Nepo baby. That whole first sequence, it's all these people who are the children of bigger stars. Yeah, it is what it is. I mean, look, the Nepo thing has always been there. It's been going on since the beginning of film. You don't realize how many things like George Burns' son was in. Because he was good? No, because he was fucking George Burns' son. Yeah, so it is what it is. So Lacey Chabert had gotten really hurt. And she comes back the next day. She's good. And despite with that spat of bad luck, the filming of this movie goes incredibly well. All the women that were involved, they really did bond. Everybody made it work. They got along. Allegedly, the catering was pretty good. But this is The Offering, and this is the Black Christmas Extravaganza. So something has to go wrong, right? Jerry, where does this all go fucking wrong? Studio interference from our old boys, Bob and Harvey Weinstein at Dimension Pictures. Because, God damn it, you knew it was coming. According to Morgan, he and James Wong had various disputes. because it's James Wong from the Final Destination films. It's all in that family. Black Christmas is a byproduct of the Final Destination family. Morgan and James Wong had various disputes with Dimension Films executives, Bob and Harvey Weinstein, specifically about the film's tone and the way the film should end. Morgan's original script ended with Kelly and Leigh in the hospital receiving a phone call from Billy, whom they had believed to be dead. And this scene, which Morgan filmed, this was intended to pay homage to the conclusion of the original film. And it's funny because producer Pete just brought to my attention that the Christmas Story, the leg, appears in this film. It's another little shout out to Bob Clark. Sick plug. The time-traveling 83 plug. This ending that they shot was scrapped by Bob Weinstein. He requested Morgan write and shoot a different ending. This ultimately resulted in a more violent conclusion that appears in the theatrical cut, which has Billy being impaled on the hospital's Christmas tree topper. And I gotta say, I like the theatrical ending better. It's leaked out over the years, the director's cut, but it kind of leaves you cold. You're like, oh, well, Billy's still out there, and that's the hook. You know, like, we can do a Black Christmas too because the killer is still out there operating. So in some ways, I'm kind of with Bob on this one. You want like a big splashy ending. You don't want, hey, I'm still out there. And that's just cut to black. That doesn't really work. So as a result of this, various cuts were made during post-production, and there are at least 2 different cuts of Black Christmas that exist. One that was released in Europe, and the one which is released in North America. And both of them feature slight variations, obviously. The European cut is 4 minutes shorter than the North American cut, and it features an alternative death scene and ending. You can get it out there, but it's just... Let me just state this. Black Christmas 2006 is like, there is something wrong with the distribution. Lionsgate has it now, and there was a Blu-ray made, there was a DVD made, but we desperately, like, I don't know, anybody, Vinegar Syndrome, Scream Factory, anybody that's out there, like, please give us a proper 4K version of this film with the multiple cuts, with, you know, director's commentary. This film, we're at that point in time where this would sell really well. People want this. So it's very nebulous, and it's never streaming anywhere. It's like this weird thing where like, it's not even like Tubi or whatever. Once a year, Vudu makes it available to buy. The rest of the year, you can't buy this movie. But if you go on Vudu right now and you have $3.99, you can buy it. And last year, I forgot to buy it. I watched this, hadn't seen it since the theater. Watched this with friend of the show, Sean King. And we were both like, we watched this last Christmas. We're like, man, this is a fucking good Christmas horror movie. Like, it fires on all cylinders and it gives you exactly what you want. It's kind of a hard thing to get a hold of. But like I said, if you have Vudu, $3.99, go get it. It's definitely worth its weight in gold until we get some kind of a proper box set or new version of this film. So after the production in Vancouver concluded, Bob and Harvey Weinstein oversaw the shooting of additional footage in Los Angeles, intended for promotional materials. Oh, and they wanted more boobs. They were very upset that a lot of these women that they hired weren't willing to show their breasts, and that upset Harvey. I'm not even kidding. Like, I'm not even like saying this in jest. This really upset him. He wanted more tits in this movie. What's messed up is they do these reshoots in Los Angeles. Harvey was notorious for this. You do a day of reshoots with him, and then he keeps the sets up and everything. And then he'll do his own little shoot without the director. He'd done this numerous times. Remember, if you go back to the Scream 2 episode, sick plug, in the Scream 2 episode, we learn about the whole ending with Ghostface just popping up in the bell tower at the college. And that was something that Harvey shot. Wes Craven was fucking mortified when they screened that. He was like, what is this? I didn't shoot this. That led to a bit of a rift that ended up being filled with money. Because that's the only way I can think of the way they fixed that between Wes and Harvey. According to Morgan, he was contacted by the Weinsteins, and they wanted to do pickup shots for TV spots. So now he did the additional stuff in Los Angeles, and now we're doing a whole different thing to market the film. because, I don't know, the Weinsteins felt like the optics weren't right on it, so they wanted more Christmassy type shit. So among the footage shot was Lacey Chabert being dragged through the snow, footage of a woman falling from the roof, where it's in the trailer, but it never actually happens, and I don't even know if the woman who falls from the roof is in the movie. There's the whole like weird lawnmower electric Christmas lighting thing that happens. An unidentified woman is discovered floating beneath a frozen lake. And if you watch it, none of this is the movie. The whole like contraption with the lawnmower thing and it's going to chop up the person, not in the movie. The frozen lake thing, which is really cool. When you see it in the trailer, you're like, oh, what the fuck is that? Like she's under the ice. Not in the movie. They were all just shot for promotional and for the trailer. But I got to tell you, though, you watch that trailer and you're like, oh, shit, people falling on roofs, all this stuff going on. You're like, I got to go see this. So Michelle Trachtenberg this was one of the reshoots. She's aiming a shotgun and saying, Merry Christmas, motherfucker, into the camera. And that was used in the European marketing, but does not appear in the film. And there's additional shots of Trachtenberg because this was like, again, the Weinsteins get a hard on for somebody. They loved Trachtenberg and they wanted to make her a big star. So they put her front and center in a lot of the promotional stuff. So there's all these additional shots of Trachtenberg holding a shotgun while Billy levitates above her on the ceiling. And the footage, which was never incorporated to the film, it appeared in the official theatrical trailer as well as television spots, but all that stuff that you see in the trailer is not in the movie. So I think they were just trying to dumb it down. How can we market this, make it real easy peasy? I get it. If you're Glenn Morgan, you're probably pretty pissed about this stuff because they did a lot of these pickup shots and just kind of stuffed things in without even really telling him. It is what it is. That's marketing. That's this industry, you know? If the people who have produced the film, if they don't think that there's a through line narratively for them to edit down a good trailer and sell the premise of the film, they'll this is not like the first time this has happened where they've gone and shot completely, stuff that'll never appear in the film in order to sell it. Black Christmas had its premiere in Los Angeles, December 19th in 2006. The Weinstein Company, the film's production company and co-distributor Dimension Films, chose to give the film a wide theatrical release on Christmas Day of 2006. Now, here's the problem with this whole thing. Is this film called Black Christmas or is it called Black Xmas? It's called Black Christmas, okay? If you look it up, if you find it. But if you look at the movie poster, it's Xmas. And in a lot of the different materials they put out there, it's Xmas. Now, why is that? We're going to get to that in a second. They had reportedly chosen this Christmas Day released on the box office success of Wolf Creek, which was released in the United States by Dimension in 2005. The film was released earlier in the United Kingdom, however, premiering December 15th, and it made them a ton of money. So they're like, all right, if we put out a horror Christmas movie on the holiday, it's going to be even bigger, right, than Wolf Creek. This film was not screened for critics, obviously. If you didn't see that happening, well, yeah, they weren't going to screen it for critics. And ultimately, and we're going to get back to this, the film was seen as a disappointment because they had spent $5 million in promotion and then $2 million in reshoots and revised edits, and they felt like they didn't get their bang for their buck for what they spent. Now, here's another weird thing about this movie, because it was the same producers. In Japan, Black Christmas is sold as a Final Destination movie. And the way that they did that was Mary Elizabeth Winstead appears in Final Destination 3, which was like one of the highest grossing movies in Japan, came out around the same time. So the Final Destination 3 came out first in Japan. People really, especially the Japanese, loved Mary Elizabeth Winstead. So they're like, okay, so what are we going to do? But it's funny because all of the Final Destination movies have these wacky titles. It's like the same thing, like Fast and the Furious is known as like Operation Skyfire. Like it has like this weird title. But all of the Japanese Final Destination titles are equally as wacky. It's like Plane Trauma Death, or like Roller Coaster Super Ride Death. They have these really audacious titles, but I kind of dig it. I feel like in some ways, even if you had those titles, they would work in America. People are like, oh, I want to see Super Fiery Death Crash 4. That looks pretty good. If you look at the posters and you look at the Japanese trailer, and she's kind of one of the stars, she's a co-star, but you would think this is a Mary Elizabeth Winstead joint. Yeah, they were doing that just to kind of cash in on all the money they had made on the Final Destination movies. For whatever it is, that roller coaster one, and the Japanese love theme parks just like we do, it resonated with the audience. It's the same thing with Scott Pilgrim versus the World. Breaking news, producer Pete, Cub reporter, and senior editor here at The Offering, has found the title of this film in Japanese. It is Final Dead Call. And that further ties it to the Final Destination films. I don't know. Do you like that title, Pete? He doesn't like the title. He's not a fan of it. But I get it. I get why they did it. Wow. See, look at this. I couldn't find the information, but all of a sudden you get somebody who's got half a brain here and he figures it out in 2 seconds. Oh, that was the other thing too. The third film in the Final Destination film, which came out the same year, was called Final Dead Coaster. So Final Dead Coaster was the big hit that gives you Final Dead Call. Wow.
We'll be right back with more of The Offering with Jerry Horror.
RetroSource Long Island is taking you back. Take a trip back in time with their custom-built store paying tribute to the best decades of all time, the 80s and the 90s. They have a massive collection of video games to choose from, spanning from Atari 2600 to Nintendo Switch, not to mention a large selection of toys, plushies, art, collectibles, board games, and so much more. They've got a friendly and quirky staff that loves to talk to you all about your favorite movies, cartoons, and TV shows that you grew up with. Check out their funny skits on their Instagram at RetroSourceLI. Do you love E.T., Thundercats, Back to the Future, Masters of the Universe, RoboCop, Street Fighter, Knight Rider, Ninja Turtles, Pokemon, Power Rangers? Yeah, man, RetroSource has got you covered. Take a photo in their Saved by the Bell high school locker display. It's totally mint. Spend hours playing arcade games while getting a sugar rush from vintage candy and soda. It's gnarly, buddy. Located at 1075 Portion Road in Farmingville, New York, RetroSource, Long Island's most radical shopping experience. It's always Halloween at the Haunted House of Hamburgers, Long Island's only Halloween-themed restaurant. At Haunted House of Hamburgers, they are obsessed with both Halloween and hamburgers, so why not have the best of both worlds every day? Salivate over their delicious hamburgers during Boo Brunch, along with their Witch's Brew and Crypt Keeper cocktails. Or take a stab at the undead desserts, such as I Scream Sundays, with your bobbing for apple pie. My favorites are the Afterlife alcoholic shakes. I'd go for the Pentagram Passion Fruit, or the Exorcism Espresso Martini Shake, or my go-to, the Loch Ness Monster Lobster Rolls. This place is fun as hell. They even encourage you to come dine in, dressed in costume. Your kids will love that. Or that could be one hell of a memorable first date. They're not going to forget that, right? Here's a little insider tip. For a far-out, trippy dining experience, ask your waiter for 3D glasses. It's pretty rad, let me tell you. Located at 330 Fulton Street in Farmingdale, New York, it's the restaurant that looks like a haunted house. You won't miss it, I promise. Make Haunted House of Hamburgers your year-round Halloween destination. You're listening to The Offering with Jerry Horror. Got a question or story you want to share with me? It might be featured in a future episode. Email me at jerryhorror@gmail.com or hit me up on Twitter at jerryhorror. I'm also on Instagram. You can find me there at jerryhorror. Rate and review this show on Apple Podcast, and you might find your review in an upcoming episode. And if you haven't already, be sure to subscribe to The Offering. Now back to the show.
The makers of Final Destination invite you to discover their recipe for the perfect Christmas.
Can't we just get on with this thing?
We have to open Billy's present first. It's a tradition.
I'm really not okay with any of this. Buying a Christmas present for a serial killer?
Billy lived here.
15 years ago tonight, something happened in this house.
Billy Len's the guy that used to live in this house?
What happened?
You mean after he washed down his Christmas cookies?
The ones he made out of his family?
Now it's happening all over again.
Billy! Billy, what have you done? I'm gonna kill you.
Billy's home for the holidays. Everyone should be home for Christmas.
So, as I aforementioned about the release date controversy, oh boy. So you thought you had survived Harvey and Bob Weinstein's crazy reshoots and just doing all kinds of wacky shit with the movie? Oh, no, there's more, folks. This film drew backlash from numerous Christian groups because of the studio's decision to release the film on Christmas Day. Several groups, which are still active, including Liberty Counsel and Operation Just Say Merry Christmas, called the film offensive, ill-founded, and insensitive. Okay, so they flip shit. Now, this is what we were talking about with why does it say Black Xmas on the poster and the marketing materials? Well, allegedly, Harvey made a call to one of these like Liberty Counsel or one of these Christian groups and was like, what can we do? It's like, we spent, it's Harvey. It's Harvey telling you, he's like, we spent all this fucking money and you're telling me we can't release a piece of art because dude, total scumbag, but a slick guy. They were basically like, well, we keep Christ in Christmas, so if you can remove Christ from the title, we're a little, we still think you're an animal and a monster and this thing is an aberration of God, but if you take Christ out of it, it's fine. So then that became the thing. They were like, all right, on any of the promotional materials, it even got to the point where they told theater owners, if you put up a marquee outside, say Last Xmas. Don't say last. I'm thinking about the George Michael song, the Wham song, Last Christmas. It's on the brain. If you were going to advertise this movie, put it on your marquee, it had to be Black Xmas and not Christmas, because we're still doing this. We got people killing each other all over the world for dumb shit, for things that don't exist. Like Jesus. No, I'm kidding. I shouldn't say that, especially on the Christmas episode. Ooh, boy. Bad stuff. So LA Weekly columnist Nikki Fink. Nikki Fink? Ooh, Nikki Fink's still around here. Also questioned the filmmaker's decision to release the film on Christmas, writing for Deadline. And the entertainment industry wonders why it continues to have a huge PR problem as promoters of garbage. Showbiz marketing calls this counter-programming. Still, I don't understand just how many disturbed human beings there are out there who would actually want to watch this crap. And does the Weinstein Company and MGM think they actually want to go see? Do they think audiences want to go see a gory movie on December 25th? All right, Nikki. And she's been a tremendous voice in the world of cinema. But yes, some of us want to watch It's a Wonderful Life, and some of us want to watch It's a Wonderful Knife. I get it. There's room for both. You can cozy up and watch A Christmas Story, and then right after that, turn on Batman Returns. It's got its own Christmas macabre, thing going on. There's room for both. You don't have to just paint Christmas in one color. You can do it in a myriad of colors and make it beautiful. And there's room for this stuff. You want to do a coming of age drama? Yeah. Because it's a time of year, and it depends for the director of the script how much you want to lean into the holiday. Is it important? Is it intrinsically a part of the film? Ending the Die Hard Christmas thing, in the beginning of the movie, he's coming in there with a bear. He's got a gift. John McClane has a gift. The end of the movie, the bearer bonds are coming down like snow, and you've got Dean Martin's Let It Snow. You don't end a conventional action movie with a Dean Martin Christmas song. It's very specific. So, yeah, we're not even going to talk about that. Now, Dimension Films defended the film in a press statement because this whole Nikki Fink thing came out, and I guess it was a slow news week, and the press ran with it. So they're like, oh, these people are monsters that are making this Christmas film. And it's crazy because you have to think where we were culturally in 2006. Those are like the George W. years. We're firmly entrenched in that, 2 years later, we get Obama. But there was kind of this return to conservative values after 9/11, and it was weird. It was a weird time to be alive. And in the George W. era, things became a little bit more conservative. People were like, we need to return to traditional values. It's the same old bullshit because they're telling you the same thing right now, that we need to return to traditional values. I don't know what the fuck that means. And once the monster's out of the box, you can't put it back in, folks. Sorry, that's just the way life works. So here's Dimension Films. This is their statement. There is a long tradition of releasing horror movies during the holiday season as counter-programming to the regular Yuletide fare. And that was it. That's all they put out there. They were just like, okay, yeah, people want to see this. Some people want to see Bozo and some people want to see boobs. I'm Harvey Weinstein. I'll be here all week. That is what it is. Film historian Michael Gurnow of the Horror Review countered Liberty Counsel's complaint, writing, such crimes occur throughout the year, including at Christmas, and cited both murder and mass murder as well as suicide that had occurred on Christmas Day 2005 in Virginia. So look, let's not be ignorant to it. It is what it is. I think if you give some of these people a platform, look, if you're offended by it, don't watch it. And if, it's kind of one of those things like marketing wise, it's one of the best things you can't watch this movie. Producer Pete, you're not allowed to see this movie. It's the morality. It's terrible. And now all of a sudden, if you're Producer Pete, you're like, I want to watch this movie. What's all the hubbub about? What do you got in there? Did you add more boobs, Harvey? Okay, well, I definitely want to see it now. Black Christmas grossed a total of $16.3 million in North America and $21.5 million worldwide. The film earned $3.3 million in its opening weekend, which was December 22nd to the 25th. It opened in 1,278 theaters. It's a pretty big opening for a film like this, especially in that era. It garnered an additional $4.9 million between the 29th of December and January 1st, 2007. And believe it or not, in its second week, it expanded. It went from 1,200 to 1,500 theaters because it had a high per screen average, which means that there were a lot of people that were coming to see this film. It was a good thing. It was a word of mouth thing. People saw it the week of Christmas and they're like, yo, you got to check this out. So it had a little bit of nice repeat business. Shockingly, the film remained in U.S. theaters until February of 2007. And this is the craziest thing. In February 9th to the 11th, it earned $1,500. That's how low it went. So I guess in February, the appetite for Black Christmas had died. Shocking. And that was in 4 theaters. The end of this run is like, sometimes the end of the run, you're still in a couple of hundred theaters or whatever it is. This is you're in 4 theaters and you made $1,500. So that concluded the theatrical run. Now, don't forget, a lot of theaters didn't even want to show this movie outright, and they pulled it. When you're talking about a lot of smaller towns and regions throughout the United States, maybe the Bible Belt, more conservative areas, they pulled the movie. They were like, well, yeah, this is part of what we're coming out with for our Christmas slate. And they were like, we're not showing it. So there were like entire cities where you just couldn't find Black Christmas. Even though it did open on 1,200 and then went to 1,500 theaters, there was a good 500 to 600 theaters that just were like, we're not showing this. This is against our morality and values, which is absolutely ridiculous. And I'm going to tell you why it's crazy. We went through this in 84 with Silent Night, Deadly Night. You remember that? The movie was doing good. Do you know what movie opened the same day as Silent Night, Deadly Night? A Nightmare on Elm Street, because they both came out in November. They probably should have released Silent Night a little later, but that's neither here nor there. Silent Night, per screen average, made more money than A Nightmare on Elm Street. And then you know what happens the weekend after it comes out? They pull it, because all of these groups Remember, there was the Mothers Group that was against Silent Night, Deadly Night. They just pulled the movie. And that sucks because it was looking like Silent Night, Deadly Night was going to have a pretty solid theatrical run for what it was. There was money to be made. And then obviously, people like me, kids, we saw it on VHS. That was how we experienced that film because the theatrical window for that original film is so limited, and I was too young to see it, but that was how you saw it, was on video. And let me remind you, in 2006, the DVD market, remember DVD, unrated and uncut. It's like 4 seconds longer. Dukes of Hazzard, unrated. But that was the style at the time. People forget that on DVD and Blu-ray in the early aughts, they cleaned up, dude. It was sell-through video, Circuit City, Best Buy, Walmart, Target. People were buying movies. You could have a movie that, like this, it barely cracks 20 million, but you could make 50 million on the DVD sales, which is insane. Black Christmas holds a 14% approval rating on the Rotten Tomatoes website based on 65 critics' reviews. This is bullshit because this movie's a low-key banger. I like it. It's a nasty piece of business. Most people in the horror community, you talk to them, unless they're Bob Clark purists, they'll tell you this is a fun little movie. It's nasty. I like it. The site's critical consensus on Rotten Tomatoes was a gratuitous remake of the 1974 slasher. Black Christmas pumps out the gore and blood with zero creativity, humor, or visual flair, which is absolute bullshit. This movie's got style for days. Metacritic, the film was given an average of 22 out of 100, based on 17 critics, indicating generally unfavorable reviews. This film has been characterized by film scholars and critics as an example of the contemporary slasher film. Bloody Disgusting gave it 3 stars, and Fangoria gave it favorable reviews at the time, too. Ken Hanley said, "This film benefits from solid and focused direction, and it wears its cringeworthy elements as a badge of honor." Film scholar Jessica Robinson also praised the film's depiction of its female characters. The sorority sisters in Black Christmas are set up to be ideal females. They all have long hair, and they're concerned with how they look, and they sit on the couch and file their nails. However, unlike stereotypical females, they also drink, curse, and talk badly about their families. So yeah, there's a real component to these characters. Did this movie win any awards? Shockingly, yes. For her performance, Mary Elizabeth Winstead was nominated for a Scream Queen Award in 2007 at the Scream Awards. Remember the Scream Awards? Remember when everybody, they had awards for everything? It was like Best Video Game Beat-Up Title. Believe it or not, Mary did not win. She was beat out that year by Kate Beckinsale, who won for the film Vacancy. Remember Vacancy? That's a big nothing burger of a movie that got a bunch of direct-to-video sequels for no good reason. I don't even know who was watching them. Probably just creepy guys who... Because that was the whole thing with Vacancy, is like, there's people watching you. You're being watched when you're in the motel. I don't know. It's somebody's fantasy. It's like these really horny fans, and they're like, this is going to be a franchise. I think there's like 4 Vacancy movies. I'm not even kidding. Also nominated that year for the Scream Queen Award was Rose McGowan and Rosario Dawson. That was the big Grindhouse year, you know. We were grindhousing away into the night with Robert Rodriguez. What happened to Glenn Morgan? That's a good question. And this is something that really stuck in my craw with doing the research. He directed Willard in 2003. This is 2006. The latest thing that he's directed, like most recently, he did 3 episodes of the X-Files revival that lasted from 2016 to 2018. He was an X-Files guy. That's where he came from. He was in deep with that whole family. So he has his ties to Breaking Bad, just like a lot of those guys did. They worked on that too. I find this kind of sad because I think Glenn Morgan, like, I watch Willard and I watch this movie and I'm like, this guy's got style. He's got a voice. There's like a real director here and he's saying something and he's got a flavor. And I just don't know why he didn't do more features. This movie, theatrically, yeah, it didn't make money or whatever, but $22 million isn't much to scoff about. And I told you, this movie made a lot of money on DVD and Blu-ray. For one reason or another, they put out like that scary unrated cut. people thought like they were going to see Lacey Chabert and Mary Elizabeth Winstead scissoring or something in this uncut version. And that's how they marketed it to young men. Look, it's good business. But Morgan does nothing. He just does TV. He directs a couple of episodes of things. He's a writer. He's a producer. But yeah. Oh, here's a crazy little fun fact about our friend Glenn Morgan. Do you know what 1986 heavy metal classic with Sammy Kerr that he wrote? Oh, how about that movie Trick or Treat? That stars Skippy from Family Ties. I love Trick or Treat. Trick or Treat is so good. We're finally getting a proper 4K of that. That's lovely. I love that movie. I love Trick or Treat. It's such a good movie. He also wrote Final Destination, which, hey. And the other thing, too, is because he wrote Final Destination, you get a good deal there. You know, your agent gets you a good deal where every Final Destination 2, 3, based on characters written, you know, and created by Glenn Morgan. So he's getting a paycheck for all those movies. So to be perfectly honest with you, financially, just based on his residuals from the X-Files and probably these Final Destination movies, he gets a nice chunk of change. He's always been working. That's the most important thing. You don't want people who are passionate about filmmaking just to fall off the face of the earth. You want them to be consistently working. So don't cry for Glenn Morgan. He's written and produced tons of shit over the last 20 years. He's doing good. I think he's a really talented guy. I think he was the beginnings of a very talented director that got cut short by a shitty situation. I also, in hindsight, and he hasn't spoken bad about it, but I've kind of taken from his interviews and everything that the Weinsteins made this a really tough project for him. At first, they were like, here, go, make whatever you want. And then he brings them back what he made. And they're like, no, no, we don't like what we told you to go make. So we're going to add shit and change things. But yeah, he's working. Morgan's flexing those muscles. That's a success story in the film industry. To always keep working. It's the best thing you can ask for. Hey, look, you might not be directing Willard 2, but you're working on good stuff and you're still out there. Now, Black Christmas was released on DVD and HD DVD in the United States in April of 2007 by Genius Products. Do you remember HD DVD? They had the red cases. Now, HD DVD came out the same time as Blu-ray. And why did Blu-ray succeed? Pornography. The HD people were like, oh, yeah, we're not going to put porn on this format. And they were like, okay, yeah, it's dead. People always talk about it, like, and this goes back to the beginning of all this shit with home media. There's VHS and beta. Why did VHS succeed? Well, they were in bed with a lot more porn producers. And every title you could imagine they put out on VHS. Whereas beta was like, oh, we don't really want to do the porn thing, but I guess we'll do a little bit of it. That's why VHS becomes the bigger format. This kind of always happens. Wherever filthy human beings can get porn, that's what it is. So if you tell them they can't get it on Avenue A, they'll go over to Avenue B. They don't care. Doesn't matter. Those red cases were weird because you don't really see them. And then sometimes, like, I'll find things. It's like I'm looking for some rare cut of something. And they're like, oh, yeah, I have that. Guy, hand me a fucking HD DVD. It doesn't happen often, but when it does, I'm like, oh. I'm like, I wanted that movie, but what the fuck can I watch this on? Do I have to go to the Flintstones and get a pterodactyl to spin it on his ass? Like, what am I supposed to do here? How am I going to watch this movie? How am I going to watch this HD DVD? I'm so upset. The DVD release was made available in widescreen and full screen. Oh, I hated those fucking full screen editions. I swear to God, it's so upsetting. New Line Cinema was, you'd get Austin Powers and fucking full screen. You know, like, what are we doing? What is this? Who is this for? It's for your grandmother who hadn't adopted, you know, we're still going HD at that point. You have the unrated cut of the film that runs 2 minutes longer than the theatrical cut. It's a little bit more gore, a little bit more penetration on the icicle shot. So it's nothing crazy. It's not like, oh my God, in this cut, she's the murderer. It's nothing crazy like that. The film has not yet received a Blu-ray release in the United States, but in 2007, the film received a region-free Blu-ray in Germany that contained both the North American theatrical cut and unrated cuts of the film. It's out there. People have booted it like 3,000 times. Like you can readily find it out there. In 2008, it received a short print Region A Blu-ray release in Canada, which contained the 90-minute R-rated North American theatrical cut of the film, and that was it. It is ridiculous. I can't believe. I don't know what it is. I think a movie like this, like there's enough nostalgia. How many years? That's 2014, 17 years? Came out 17 years ago? Yeah, it's ready. It's just about due. We talk about that, the cycle of a movie, the 5 years, the 10 years, the 20 year. Once you usually hit the 20 year, that's like, Pete and I were talking about the nostalgia for the Phantom Menace and the prequels. And yeah, 20 years later, the sweet spot of those kids grow up and they're like, oh man, remember this? Oh, I love these movies. There is some dirty little boy or girl who has been sitting and watching Black Christmas when they were a little kid. You know, it came on HBO or whatever it was. And they were like, oh my God, this is amazing. It's like the first horror movie they saw, it freaked them out. So they're going to have that emotional attachment. In 2022, another Blu-ray release containing the North American theatrical cut and unrated cut, as well as the European cut, which does feature some more violent kills and a couple of alternate scenes and that alternate ending that Morgan had shot, that was released in Germany. I haven't seen this. I don't know about this. I'm not quite sure. I have to do a little bit more research to see if I could get this, but I don't want it. You know what I want. I want a fucking 4K restoration, director's commentary. Let's do this. Let's get on the ball here. Now, remember, the film had made like whatever it was like $15 million. But guess how much it made on DVD? $30 million. You know, the movie cost $10 million and it made its money back on DVD. And that's why physical media was so important, especially in the aughts. Like, you made so much money on the back end. Scream was one of the big ones. Because when the first movie came out, the second movie, there was still VHS. So the VHS and then subsequently the DVDs, like Scream was a monster. Scream made like $100 million on DVD and VHS sales. It was incredible. So as of this episode, to my knowledge, which is pretty much is the best we can get at this point, kids, you get what I'm saying, there is no planned 4K. There's nothing. Nobody's got it. Now, I had waited to get to this. We got to talk about Shirley Walker. At the end of the film, it's dedicated to composer Shirley Walker. The final credits include the message, "Goodbye, Shirley." And it's a tribute to the composer. She was a frequent collaborator with Morgan. Now, let me tell you something. You have no idea. You have no idea how many films and like, okay, you ready for what Shirley Walker's done? You better fucking buckle up. Ghoulies, Mystery Men, the Flash TV show from the 80s, Darkman, Dick Tracy, True Lies, Spawn, Fear, a Goofy movie. Shirley Walker did so much, and that's not even included. She did obviously her music from the Batman, the animated TV show. It's a part of it. People always, they associate those central themes, obviously with Danny Elfman, but man, she's all over that show. And a lot of the themes and musical cues that you probably remember in your little brain, it's Shirley Walker. She was great. She was great. And seriously, man, like Shirley Walker, rest in peace, because especially in her time to make that many contributions as a female composer, when you think about great movie scores, whether it's Jerry Goldsmith or John Williams, it's really a male-dominated business. So when you have a woman who comes in and she's done, listen, we could spend a whole day on her resume. Seriously, her contribution to cinema in general, incredible, especially for a female in her era. This movie was unfairly marketed. It was protested, and it was written off by general audiences. People were like, what are we doing? They saw it as like a cliche, you know, like, why are we bothering with this? Because don't forget, this is the gap. You have Scream and all that stuff that blows up in the late 90s, and this is like the hangover. And now it's like the only things that are making money at the box office are fucking horror remakes. And that was really kicked off with the Platinum Dunes, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre remake. And it just got hot and heavy. And unfortunately, then in 2012, we were still getting remakes. Like, we're still getting remakes of horror movies. It was kind of this wave that never ended. And it's still going on. We still get remakes to this day. That was just kind of like the fashion at the time was like, okay, what's this iconic film that everybody loves? Okay, we're just going to remake it. That's it. That was rinse, repeat. I think this is a little bit of a modern horror classic. It's funny, like just even looking at the cell phones and stuff, like everything is just so time-stamped to that era. I've thrown this on at a couple of different occasions. Sean and I watched it last year. People like this. I've put this movie on. It's 93 minutes. It's breezy. You got just enough going on to keep you entertained and keep you engaged. And it gets pretty gory. I like this movie. I'm not apologizing for it. I just, look, there's nothing to apologize. I like Black Christmas 2006. You know what I don't like? And you know it'll probably never be a fucking episode is Black Christmas 2019. That piece of shit that Blumhouse put out. And there's fucking fans of that because I go on fucking X or Twitter or whatever Elon's calling it this week. And every fucking week, some person, I really liked Black Christmas 2019. It's a fucking terrible movie. There's some good ideas. You've got Cary Elwes. Okay, he's always great, but you've got there's some ideas. The problem is, and it's funny too, because you watch that movie and it's so firmly rooted in 2019, like even the fashion and everything. I get it. Like if you're younger, you might relate to those characters, the music, whatever it is. But Black Christmas 2019 makes a decision, and the decision is we're going to get quasi-supernatural, and I'm down with that. You want to do this kind of remake, reimagining, and you want to make it as a fucking Me Too soliloquy, I get it. Like, we're doing that. It's of the era. It's post-Me Too. We're going to incorporate that into the film. Then we're going to do, like, this weird supernatural. Pick a fucking lane, all right? You can do the Me Too thing, but keep it in there under the surface. Don't make that be like, that's the thing. That's it. That's the thing with Gerald Finari. That's the thing. This is Black Christmas 2019, and we're in a different era now, and men need to be held. What the fuck does this have to do with Black Christmas? Look, I'm of both minds. I see what they're trying to do, but at the same time, I want my holiday Oreos, and I want them to have little Christmas trees on them. I don't need messages on the other side telling me about how many dogs die daily from fucking whatever. You know what I'm saying? Like, just give me what I want. Okay, and I think that's the thing. Look, they took some chances, but people say like, oh, why do they remake these films? I'm like, because it's a fucking name brand. Because your mother might have seen the original film at a drive-in, or your older brother had a cassette of, whatever it was, and now you're turned on to it because someone who is older put you onto it. But Black Christmas 2019 is just a fucking mess. I don't like it. I was fine. Like, you want to do the supernatural thing? Go with it. That's cool. I'm down with it. But the execution was terrible. It's a terrible film. I won't be covering it. I really don't give a shit. This is not, this isn't like, who's that guy? Dead Meat. He just covers, it's just the body count. I could do that. I could go, oh yeah, Lacey Chabert gets killed by 40. Okay, I get it. Like, you're a 4-year-old. You're on YouTube, different medium. But he'll just do anything. He's a whore. I want to do films that I can tell stories about that have a little bit of meat. There's something going on. We're going to explore that. You want to see people getting murdered? Hey, God bless. So do I. But the ones that I want to see get murdered end up becoming fucking president. So it is what it is. Unhinged reviews. Ken Hank from Mountain Express. This is a real thing. It says Mountain and the X is just Express. It sounds like he's writing for some porn company or something. Like he's penthouse letters. Santa just dumped another slasher flick that stopped off at the theater on its way to the $5.50 dump bin at Walmart. Score, 2 out of 4. That's still pretty good. That's what I was saying, like The Force Awakens. Like, it's not a terrible film. It's watchable. Like, it's, but it's not very good. I get it. Like, you had to be a dick about it with the whole, when you say something's going to the DVD, the dump bin at Walmart, that's not good. It's kind of like if your dad was like, hey, I'm in a movie. You're like, is it one of those movies over there next to the big movies with Robert De Niro? No. It's at the bottom of this bin. Billy, can you dig to the bottom of this bin and find, that's where my film career is. Nobody wants to be in the fucking bin, but here's the reality of life. You start out on the regular shelf. You start out, you're next to Bugs Bunny. You're next to the fucking Disney princesses. Next thing you know, you're at the bottom of the bin over in the corner, the dark corner where some kid just took a shit. Nobody cares about it. Nobody cleaned it up for 2 weeks. And that's where your career goes. It's the circle of life. It's beautiful. Sarah Michelle Fetter's moviefreak.com. That is such an early aughts Moviefreak.com. Like the fruitcake sitting on your counter, it's a rather rote waste of time. For the life of me, I can't come up with anything else to say. 1.5 out of 4. Michael Rechenstadt, I can't even say this guy's name. It's so German. It's Klaus. Michael Reckenschaffen from The Hollywood Reporter. This is my favorite. As Yuletide counter-programming goes, here's one smelly lump of coal. 1 out of 5 stars. That's the best one. Because all the fucking bad reviews for this movie, they're all the same. It's like, Santa gave me a dump this Christmas, and he wrapped it up. Every single one is like, this thing's more like getting a candy cane in your other hole, if you get my... Every review is exactly like that. They want that big lead line. You'd find more holiday surprises in Rudolph's poop. Whatever they can do to get the holiday thing and get the blurb out there. I get it. I've done the same thing. I'm just as much of a shill. Believe me, I try to get my blurbs on stuff too. I like to be positive. I think if you see a good movie, you should go and tell everybody that you saw a good movie. If you see a shitty movie, because the way word of mouth works is people tend to be more negative. All these people on X, especially in the industry, like, oh, I hate these worst stuff lists, but they draw. Do you know what the biggest fucking listened to episode of our season from season 3 was? The worst horror sequel of all time. Was The Exorcist 2, The Heretic, the worst? No, it's not the fucking... There's a lot, believe me. Have you seen Ghoulies 4? Yeah, look, it's not the worst horror sequel of all time. But on that same token, if it's negative, it kind of leads because you want to listen to that episode. Wait, Jerry's going to tell us what the worst horror sequel of all time is? Well, I definitely got to listen to this. So look, it's the old thing, like in the media, if it bleeds, it leads. If you go with the negativity, people follow it. I mean, shit, like entire news platforms have built their whole business model around just being negative. And that's not where your headspace needs to be, especially around the holiday season. With that being said, what was my takeaway from all this? Glenn Morgan was a talented guy. He had to deal with the Weinsteins, and it probably soured him. That's just the way it works. Like I said, circle of life. Whenever you deal with Dimension Pictures, you're getting into some shit. Holidays, sometimes they can be tough. Even if it's not a horror-based Christmas movie. You've got your own real-life horror story going on. It's okay. It's okay. You might be alone this Christmas. This Christmas, maybe your mother passed away. Maybe things are different. You went through a divorce. It's not the happy Christmases that you remember. But it's important that you make the best out of it. Do you get what I'm saying? You go and you actively try. Look, I'm working on Christmas. I'm not going to have a traditional holiday this year, but I'm going to make the best out of it. I'm going to wear my Santa hat. Not because I'm faking it to the whole world. It's because, Christmas is really in your heart. It's really about the joy that you find. And there are a lot of good memories. And I remember all those Christmases with my big family, all the good stuff with mom and grandma. I remember that stuff and I hold it dear and I cherish it. But I also realize that not every Christmas has to be, well, this one's got to be bigger and better than... No, every Christmas is different. It's like a color palette. It's got its own unique flavor. And that's cool because you're going to remember it. Whether it's bad, good, or indifferent, it's still Christmas. And you have to make the best out of it, regardless of what situation you're in. Look, you might have a lot of money and you got beautiful children and everything's going your way. I'm going to tell you what, enjoy it. Enjoy it, indulge in it, because you might think, oh, things were better, be present-minded. Be in this moment. Don't focus on, well, next year I'm going to buy a bigger tree. And don't focus on, well, Aunt Olivia was still alive and she was, don't focus on that stuff. Focus on the here and now and making it the best holiday that you can make it right now. Don't focus on the past. Don't focus on the future. Focus on Christmas present. It's stressful. It's financially draining. There's all kinds of stuff. It happens. That's life. And what I've learned, if I can impart one piece of knowledge that I've learned, is we all go through the same thing. And we go through love, loss, whatever it is. What defines us as people is how we deal with it. How do we deal with it? Two different people, both going through a divorce. One guy says, all right, he makes peace with it and moves on. The other guy wallows in it and spends 10 years of his life. What did I do wrong? Same thing happened. Same exact situation of both people. But what defined the guy who made his way through that situation was how he dealt with it. So like I said, this holiday season, take a load off. Relax. It's okay. No matter what you're thinking in your mind, it's never going to live up to those lofty heights. Just accept the Christmas that is, and that's fine. They're not all going to be winners, just like these movies we cover. They're not all going to be, the best thing, but that's okay. That's okay. With that, gentle listener, you want to do something for me? I do something for you. You enjoyed this episode? Follow us on social media. Subscribe. Rate us on iTunes. Every little bit helps. We're on YouTube. Go subscribe to the YouTube, even if you don't use it. Or maybe you didn't even know it existed, but now you do. Follow me at Jerry Horror on all the social medias. You can see all the wonderful holiday things I'm doing. As I've gotten older, I ain't taking pictures of the cookies. I'm not taking pictures. I'm eating the cookies. I'm enjoying the cookies. I'm savoring those cookies. You don't need to take pictures. Don't live your life on social media. It's fucking stupid. Wow, Jerry, this is a heck of a holiday. You're like, that's how you're gonna end it? No, I'm gonna end it like this. I hope you and your family have a very Merry Christmas. And just remember, if you've been a very good boy or a very good little girl, season 4 is on the way. This has been The Offering. Mostly horror, but always genre. You've been listening to The Offering with Jerry Horror. I'm very sorry. Produced by Pete Bune. If you have a question or a story you want to share with me, we'd love to hear from you. You can email me at jerryhorror@gmail.com or hit us up at Twitter @jerryhorror or on Instagram @jerryhorror. You getting the picture? Subscribe to Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever fine podcasts are provided for you and your family. I want you to enjoy. Just join us next time for another offering.
This has been a Sick Boy Wolfgang production. Thank you for listening.